people who work or travel alone at night, what's the moment that still haunts you? I used to deliver newspapers at 3 a.m. Dark, quiet streets. Most of the time it was peaceful. Until one night in November, I was driving through a residential neighborhood when I saw a woman standing in the middle of the road. She was wearing a white nightgown, barefoot, just standing there facing away from me. I slowed down and rolled my window down to ask if she needed help. She didn't move, didn't acknowledge me at all. I honked gently, nothing. I put the car in park and got out, walked closer and called out to her. That's when she started turning, slowly, unnaturally slow, like her body was rotating on a turntable. When she faced me, I saw her eyes, completely black. No whites, no irises, just solid black. And she was smiling, the widest smile I've ever seen, too wide for a human face. I backed away and she started moving toward me. Her feet weren't moving right. They were sliding across the pavement, not walking, just sliding. I ran back to my car and locked the doors. She pressed her face against my window, that smile never changing. I threw the car into reverse and got out of there. When I looked in my rearview mirror, she was gone. Just an empty street. I called the police. They found nothing. No woman, no footprints, but my window had a handprint on it, small, like a child's hand, but with fingers that were far too long. I quit that job the next day and started driving for UPS instead, daytime only. I still drive through that neighborhood sometimes during the day. It looks completely normal. Nice houses, families, kids outside. But I never go there at night. And sometimes, when I'm lying in bed trying to sleep, I see that smile, those black eyes, and I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't run. I deliver pizza, late shift, usually until 2 or 3 in the morning. One night, I got an order to a house I'd never delivered to before. The address was in a development I didn't even know existed. I drove out there following my GPS. The streets were empty, no cars, no lights in any of the windows. It felt like a ghost town. When I found the house, it looked abandoned. Overgrown yard, broken windows, but the porch light was on. I grabbed the pizza and walked up to the door. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. The door creaked open on its own. I called out, nothing. I should have left. I should have marked it undeliverable. But something made me step inside. The house was furnished, clean, like someone lived there. But everything was covered in dust, like nobody had touched it in years. I walked through the living room and saw photos on the wall. A family. Mum, Dad, 2 kids. Smiling. Happy. Then I heard a voice from the kitchen. A woman saying, "We're in here." I walked toward the voice. The kitchen was set for dinner. 4 plates, 4 glasses. Food laid out on the table. But the food was rotten, covered in mold. I turned to leave, and that's when they were standing there. The family from the photos, all 4 of them, just staring at me, not moving. The mother smiled and said, "You brought our dinner, thank you." I dropped the pizza and ran. I got in my car and drove. I didn't stop until I was back at the restaurant. My manager asked what happened. I told him. He went pale. He said that development had been abandoned 15 years ago. Toxic soil. It made people sick. One family refused to leave. They died in their house. Carbon monoxide poisoning. All 4 of them. I quit that night. Started working at a coffee shop instead. Day shift. But I still think about them. Standing in that kitchen. How real they looked. How they smiled when I brought their pizza. And I wonder if they're still waiting there for their next delivery. I drive for Uber, mostly on weekend nights. It's good money. One Saturday around 3 a.m., I picked up a fare downtown. A guy in his 20s, dressed well. Seemed normal enough. He got in and gave me an address on the outskirts of town. We drove in silence for about 10 minutes. Then he leaned forward and said, "You're going to want to take the next left." I told him the GPS was showing straight ahead. He insisted, said there was construction coming up. I hadn't seen any signs, but I took the left anyway. We ended up on a dark road. No streetlights, no houses, just trees on both sides. Then he told me to pull over. I asked if this was his stop. He said, "No, I need to tell you something." My heart started racing. I kept my hand near my phone, ready to call for help. He said that 3 years ago, his sister was driving home from work. She was a night shift nurse. Someone ran her off this road, right there. She died. They never found who did it. I didn't know what to say. Then he told me, "You need to be careful. There's someone who hunts this road at night, runs people off, kills them, makes it look like accidents." After that, he leaned back and said, "Okay, you can keep driving." I took him to the address he'd given me. When we arrived, he handed me a $100 bill and said, "Thank you for listening, for taking the detour." I watched him walk into his house. The next day, I looked up accidents on that road. I found his sister's obituary. Everything he told me checked out. But here's the part that still messes with me. I looked up the address he gave me, the house I watched him walk into. It burned down 5 years ago. Nobody lives there anymore. The lot is empty. I drove back during the day to check for myself. Just an overgrown lot with a condemned sign. No house, no mailbox, nothing. I have no idea who I picked up that night, or where he really went. But I don't take fares to that part of town anymore, and I definitely don't drive that road after dark. I work as a security guard at a hospital. Night shift. The morgue is in the basement, and I have to do rounds down there every 2 hours. I've seen a lot in 5 years, but one night changed everything. I was doing my midnight round, walking through the corridor toward the morgue, when the lights started flickering. That's pretty standard in an old hospital. But then I heard whistling. Someone was whistling a tune, coming from inside the morgue. I stopped outside the door. The whistling continued. Happy, cheerful, completely out of place. I knocked. The whistling stopped. I called out, asking if anyone was there. No response. I used my key card and opened the door. The room was empty, just the drawer units. Everything looked normal. I was about to leave when one of the drawers started opening, slowly sliding out on its own. I stood there frozen. The drawer came out about 2 feet and stopped. I approached it carefully and looked inside. Empty. No body. Just an empty drawer. Then another drawer opened. Then another. Then all of them started sliding out at once. The room filled with the sound of metal scraping on metal. I ran. I didn't look back. I got to the lobby and called my supervisor. He came down with me. Every drawer was closed. Everything looked normal. He thought I was messing around, but I know what I saw. After that, the whistling started happening regularly, always between midnight and 1 a.m. Other guards heard it too. We started doing rounds in pairs. One night, we checked the security footage. The camera outside the morgue showed me standing in the hallway. It showed me opening the door, but it also showed someone walking out behind me, a figure in hospital scrubs, walking right behind me down the corridor. I never saw them, I never felt them, but they were there, right behind me the entire time. We had the morgue blessed by a chaplain. The whistling stopped, but I still think about that figure, how close they were, what they wanted. I requested a transfer. Now I work the day shift, same hospital, but I never go to the basement, not even during the day, because I know something is down there, and it knows that I saw it. I'm a night janitor at an office building, 23 floors. I work alone from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The 15th floor has always creeped me out. Something about it just feels wrong. One night, I was vacuuming when I noticed someone sitting at one of the desks, a woman, typing on a computer. This was unusual because nobody works that late. I walked over and asked if she needed anything. She didn't respond, just kept typing. I stepped closer and realized the computer wasn't even on. She was typing on a dead keyboard. I reached out and touched her shoulder. My hand went right through her. She flickered, like a hologram glitching. Then she turned and looked at me. Her face was wrong. The features were blurred, like looking at someone through frosted glass. She opened her mouth, and a sound came out. Not words, just a low-frequency hum that made my teeth hurt. I backed away and she stood up, started walking toward me. I ran for the elevator, pressing the button frantically. She was getting closer, moving faster than she should. The doors opened, and I jumped inside. She reached for me as they closed. Her hand passed through the doors, and I felt it. Ice cold, like sticking my hand into a freezer. The elevator dropped straight to the ground floor. I called my supervisor. He told me the 15th floor used to be a call center. 10 years ago, a woman worked late one night and had a heart attack at her desk. Nobody found her until the next morning. She'd been typing when she died, her hands still on the keyboard. I refused to clean that floor for a month. Eventually, I had no choice. Now I wear headphones, music loud, eyes on my work. I don't look at the desks. I don't acknowledge anything I see in my peripheral vision. But sometimes, the elevator stops on 15 even when I don't press the button. The doors open and I see her, sitting at her desk, typing. Always typing. The doors close and the elevator continues. I've learned to just stare at my feet and wait for it to pass. Only 2 more years until retirement. I can make it, I hope. I'm an overnight stocker at a 24-hour grocery store. The place is usually empty between 2 and 5 a.m. Just me and maybe one cashier. One night, I was stocking shelves in aisle 7 when I heard a child laughing. I looked around. Nobody was there. The laughing continued, moving through the aisles. I followed the sound to the toy section. A ball was rolling down the aisle, slowly, like someone had pushed it. I picked it up, and it was ice cold. The laughing stopped. I put the ball back on the shelf and went back to work. 5 minutes later, I heard it again, louder this time. Multiple children laughing. I walked back to the toy section, and every single ball was on the floor, rolling, moving in circles, all on their own. I called for the cashier. She came running, saw the balls, and went white as a sheet. She said this happens sometimes, late at night. The toys move. We hear children. Nobody knows why. She told me the building used to be a daycare. 20 years ago, there was a fire. 7 children died. They rebuilt it as a grocery store. But weird things started happening immediately. Electronics turning on by themselves. Toys activating. And the laughing. Always the laughing. We picked up the balls together and put them back. The laughter faded, but now it happens at least once a week. We've learned to just acknowledge it and put the toys back. Sometimes we even say goodnight to them. It seems to help. The store manager knows, corporate knows. They don't care as long as we keep it quiet. But new employees don't last long on night shift. They hear the children, see the toys move, and they quit. I've been here 3 years now. I've gotten used to it. The children seem playful, not malicious. But sometimes I wonder what they want, why they're still here, and if they'll ever move on. Sometimes I leave a toy out on purpose. By morning, it's always somewhere else, like they played with it. I hope they're happy, or at least not suffering. That's all I can hope for. I'm a long-haul trucker. I've been doing it for 15 years. You see a lot of weird things on the road at night, but nothing prepared me for what happened on Interstate 40 in New Mexico. It was 2 a.m., middle of nowhere, no other cars for miles. I was listening to talk radio when my CB crackled to life. A woman's voice came through and said, "You need to pull over right now." I looked around. There were no trucks anywhere near me. I asked who was speaking. She said, "Please pull over. Something's wrong with your trailer. You need to check it now." I don't normally listen to random CB chatter, but something in her voice made me pull over. I grabbed my flashlight and walked back to check the trailer. Everything looked fine. The doors were locked. The seals were intact. I was about to get back in the cab when I heard scratching coming from inside the trailer. I pressed my ear to the door, definitely scratching, and whimpering like a dog or something. But I was hauling furniture, no animals. I radioed my dispatcher and told them what was happening. They told me to open it and check. I broke the seal and opened the doors. The furniture was there, all secured. But in the back corner, I saw movement. I shined my light, and there was a girl, maybe 16, curled up behind a dresser, terrified, filthy. She'd been in there for God knows how long. I called 911 immediately. It turned out she'd been kidnapped 3 weeks earlier, held captive, and managed to escape. She hid in my trailer while it was being loaded. The kidnappers were actively looking for her. If I hadn't stopped, they would have found her when I unloaded. The police caught them 2 days later. I never found out who the woman on the CB was. I asked the girl if she'd had a radio. She hadn't. No one else was on that channel. Dispatch checked their recordings. No transmission was logged, but I heard her. She saved that girl's life. Sometimes I think about that voice. I wonder who she was, or if she was even real. But that girl is alive because I listened, and that's all that matters. I work as a night nurse in a nursing home. Most of my patients have dementia or Alzheimer's, so you get used to the confusion, the wandering, the repetition. But Mrs. Patterson in room 12 was different. She was 94 years old, sharp as a tack. No cognitive decline at all. She'd been with us for 6 months. A sweet woman, never any trouble. One night around midnight, I was doing my rounds when I checked on Mrs. Patterson and saw that she was awake. She was sitting up in bed, staring into the corner of her room. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Do you see her?" I looked where she was pointing. There was nothing there. I asked, "See who?" She said, "The little girl. She's been visiting me every night for a week. She stands in that corner and watches me." I tried to reassure her, telling her it was probably a dream. She grabbed my hand and looked me straight in the eye. "I'm not confused, dear," she said. "She's really there, and she told me something." Then she said, "She told me 7 people have died in this room. Is that true?" I didn't know what to say. Mrs. Patterson continued. "The girl told me their names. She listed 7 names. I wrote them down and told her I'd check in the morning." She smiled sadly and said, "I don't think I'll be here in the morning. The girl said it's my turn tonight." She seemed peaceful about it. I stayed with her for a while and held her hand. She fell asleep around 1 a.m. When I checked on her again at 2, she had passed, peacefully in her sleep. The next day, I looked up the 7 names she had given me. Every single one had died in room 12 over the past 15 years. All natural deaths, all elderly patients. But how did she know? I had never told her. There are no records posted in the rooms. And the little girl, who was she? I asked the director if any children had ever died here. She hesitated, then said yes. In 1973, an 8-year-old girl had been brought here by mistake. They thought she was elderly, due to some kind of rare aging disease. She died in room 12. We don't use that room anymore. It was converted to storage because nurses kept reporting the same thing. A little girl standing in the corner, watching, waiting, telling patients when it was time. Mrs. Patterson was the last patient ever placed in that room, and she was right. It was her turn. I'm a taxi driver in New York. I've been doing it for 20 years. You see everything in this job, but one night still keeps me awake. It was January, freezing cold. Around 3:30 a.m., I picked up a woman from Penn Station. She was crying, mascara running down her face. I asked if she was okay. She gave me an address in Brooklyn and said, "Please hurry." We drove in silence. I kept checking on her in the mirror. She was shaking, not from the cold, but from fear. As we crossed the bridge, she leaned forward and said, "I need to tell someone what happened." I told her to go ahead. She said, "I was kidnapped tonight, held in a basement for 6 hours, 3 men. They were going to kill me, but I got away. I fought them off and ran. I wanted to call the police immediately, but she said, 'No, please, just take me home. I need to see my daughter. Just get me home.' When we reached her address, I told her she needed to report it. She said, 'I will. Tomorrow. Tonight. I just need to hold my baby.' She paid me and got out. I watched her walk to the building. She turned, waved, smiled weakly, and went inside. I should have called the police myself, but I didn't. I regret that every day. The next morning, I saw the news. A woman's body had been found in Brooklyn, murdered in her apartment. Her daughter was unharmed, found crying next to her mother. The victim's photo flashed across the screen. It was her, the woman from my cab, but the estimated time of death was 11 p.m., 4 hours before I picked her up. I reported everything to the police, showed them my cab logs, my GPS data, proof I drove her at 3:30 a.m., but she was already dead. They think I'm crazy, that I made it up for attention, but I drove her, I talked to her, she paid me. I still have the $20 bill she gave me. I had it tested, no fingerprints, like it had never been touched. I keep it in my wallet, a reminder that I failed her, that maybe if I'd called the police that night, things would have been different. But how could they? She was already dead. I just didn't know it yet.